Hey everybody. So I'm sure everybody's seen the on social media. Everybody's asked to post their top 10 albums. Um, no description, no explanation. Just post a picture of one of your favorite or top 10 albums of all time. Well, I thought I'd take some time and do my top five that are actually in my collection. Um, I've never really been into collecting albums all that much. I have probably, and don't laugh, probably about 75 albums in my current collection. I was just never into not just so much collecting, but I never saved them. If I felt that if I wore the album out, or even the 45s that I used to have, if I felt that I wore them out, I just throw them out. So I never got into um, being an audiophile or a album collector or anything like that. But one of my most favorite albums of all time, and it's not just that it means something to me. It just, to me, to this day, is one of my all-time favorite albums. That album, Kiss Alive. I actually got this album from my mom on Easter when I believe I was 12. I was heavily into Kiss at the time, and what 12-year-old boy wasn't that was into rock music? I totally bought into the costumes, the makeup, and the music wasn't even like the the reason why I got into them. It was their whole persona. But the older that I got, um, I did eventually, well, I did like the music at the time. It's just it wasn't something that I actually pursued because of the music. The music was an afterthought, but still one of my most favorite albums of all time. Um, yeah, Easter Sunday when I was probably 12 years old, my mom gave it to me, so still got it. Um, this isn't the original. I actually started going to a Christian school probably the year after I got this, and one of my one of the administrators was a Bible thumper. Well, of course she was. She was a Christian, private Christian school. So she brainwashed me, so to speak. I had she was totally into the Night in Satan service, Kings in Satan service, whatever the anagram of the day was, and she brainwashed me. I bought into it, and I went home and I I destroyed it. But once I came to my senses, I did go out and buy another copy. So for some reason, it doesn't seem like it seemed to me when I first bought the first album, the first time when the album my mom got me, it seemed to me that it was an original copy, but for some reason it just doesn't. And I don't know how um, to tell if it's a original printing or not, or pressing. But it just, for me, it just doesn't seem like the authentic album that my mom got me. But doesn't stop me from listening to it. I had the cassette, I had the CDs, and obviously I have the album. So, but one of my top five of all time. So, in no particular order, another top five in my collection: Blizzard of Oz. I don't really have a story between Blizzard of Oz. It's just a kick-ass album to me. Randy Rhoads is just phenomenal. The first time I heard Crazy Train, the solo. First time I heard Mr. Crowley. Just the whole the whole album to me. It's just great. I love his tone. Um, I think this is when Ozzy was actually in his prime. I didn't really get into Black Sabbath all that much prior to Ozzy going solo, but I yeah, obviously knew of Iron Maiden, Paranoid, and the classics from Black Sabbath. But It wasn't until Ozzy went solo until I really got into not just Ozzy but Black Sabbath as well. So, but there's can't say a bad thing about this album. Now I don't recall how I got into Thin Lizzy. Um, Back in late '70s, early '80s, I had really got into my own taste of music. I never really followed anybody as far as oh, you got to listen to this, you got to listen to that. Um, I was into like guitar magazines and stuff like that, so I'm pretty sure that's probably how this came about with Phil Lynott and everything. So, but it was a great purchase. I love this album. I had this cheap phono player, and it was probably $15 at Kmart or Twin Fair from Western New York. And what I used to do was I just put the albums. I mean, a few albums at the time, and what I would do is just lay down on my back and put speakers right up against my head, right against my ears, maybe this close, and I would just put the albums on. And this was an incredible album to listen to, right there in your ears. So again, I'm not sure, really no story behind Thin Lizzy and how I got into them, but it's a great album. I no regrets as far as purchasing this album, and this is the same copy I picked up back in '83 or '84. So it's a great album. Highly recommend it. Need I say anything? No story, just an incredible album. I think anybody that was into rock and roll, the moment they heard Eruption and You Really Got Me, it's just that's all it took. Such a great album. I remember this. I had gone to his party, and there's a girl that me and my friend Pat knew, and her name was Jamie, and he and we didn't really get into that big partying, but we party hop and stuff once in a while. So we were at this party, and we're just hanging out, and some girl came up to us and said, "Have you guys seen Jamie?" And Pat, without skipping a beat, says, "Yeah, she's crying." It's like, that's the kind of humor that we had. Jamie's crying, but she's like, "Oh my God, what happened?" So we still say that once in a while. I mean, I'll give him a holler and say, "Have you seen Jamie?" "Yeah, she's crying." But you can't go wrong with this album. Such a great album. Speaking of Pat, he's the one that introduced me to Gary Moore. And this is an incredible album. Corridors of Power. I ran into him at the grocery store one day. I went with my gram and walked into the store, and there he was standing and with his mom. And so we got to talking, and his mom and my gram, they went off and did their grocery shopping. So we're standing there. It was kind of like not too much long, maybe 2 weeks of actually meeting each other. So we started talking. Found out that we both played guitar, and he was eons ahead of me. But I'd call him up, say, "Hey, you want to jam?" Like, "Sure." So my gram would take me up there and drop me off, and it got to the point where every other day I'm going up there, and I walk in, and his mom says, "Yeah, he's upstairs in his room. You know where he is." So I started walking up the stairs. By the way, he's got this. He was into Judas Priest at the time, and on the wall of his stairwell, he did "Screaming for Vengeance" from Judas Priest all down the side of the stairwell. It was really good. It's still there, actually. I actually talked to his stepmom and said, "Oh yeah, it's still there. We didn't paint over it." So she sent me a picture. It's pretty cool. But anyway, I'm walking up the stairs, and he's playing this piece. I'm like, walked into the room, like, what is that? He was playing "End of the World" by Gary Moore, note for note, and I'm just like, that was it. It just blew me away, and I think it was at that point where I just kind of like put my guitar down. I'm not gonna be as good as him or Gary Moore for that matter, and it kind of just like I had to just sit there in awe and just watch him play the End of the World. But that was my introduction to Gary Moore, and I've been a fan ever since. So, but that's the story for Gary Moore. One album that I do really want to talk about is I don't have it in my collection. I don't have the vinyl, but Jeff Beck, Blow by Blow. Basically, it's my honorable mention because I don't have it on vinyl, but it's definitely, if not the number one album for me of all time. Not only is it a fantastic, incredible LP, it's got a lot of sentimental value for me. When I lived down in Oklahoma, I think it was the year before I actually started going there back in, I entered my freshman year in '85. So I think it might have been the summer before when I actually had the cassette. And me and my brother-in-law, my sister's boyfriend at the time, the three of us would just hop the cart. It was the campus area rural transit system. So he's like, you had cards, special student, you just flash in your card. And we just go down on campus and walk around, get into trouble and stuff. But I had this boombox, and I would put this cassette in, and we'd listen to it. Even the bus driver, he's like, "Dude, what is that? Who is that?" So we tell him who it was, and he's like, "That is a great album. I got to go get it." So we'd be listening to "Cause We've Ended as Lovers," which is like a Stevie Wonder song, but what Jeff Beck did with that song, just phenomenal. And that was one of the songs I actually had to learn. I just had to learn on guitar. It had its difficulties, but it was still, I was able to play, part of it anyway. But yeah, we just go down into the, down on campus, just fart around on campus with my boombox, listening to all the songs. And it was just, to me, like I said, with the memories of that CD and the songs that were just kind of like the soundtrack for the time. So that would be my honorable mention, number one album of all time for me. So, but again, that was, this came about because of the social media top 10 albums. I thought I'd do a video portion of just my 6, but that's it.